Isn't it something that it requires courage to simply say the truth? To simply say nothing more than the truth
I
of your
know.
situation. Otherwise, there's going to be a howling mob
Yep.
of people calling you all kinds of names without ever having met you or knowing a thing about you. They're just going to assume.
Yep.
It's Mark Twain that I think coined the phrase that it's a lot easier to fool people than to prove to them that they've been fooled. And I don't know why that is. I guess people just don't like to admit that they've been wrong or that they were fooled because everybody likes to pretend that they're smarter than that they can't be manipulated. But people have been lied to, people have been fooled. Hello, friends. I'm proud to give a shout out to our sponsor, the Canadian Legacy Project. Veterans Affairs Canada is very limited in its service offering to veterans, so the Canadian Legacy Project has stepped up to fill the gap. CLP develops and delivers a full suite of free programs for Canadian veterans. CLP celebrates our veterans by offering meaningful support for healing and the transition to civilian life. Homes for Heroes, Business Boot Camp, Service Dogs, educational bursaries, equine therapy, and more are available through the Canadian Legacy Project. Find out more at CanadianLegacy.org. Hello, all you beautiful souls. Thank you for joining me for another edition of Operation Tango Romeo, the Trauma Recovery Podcast for veterans, first responders, and their families. As you know, I stay in my lane. I stay within the niche of trauma recovery most of the time. Every now and then, I take a small detour. Today is one of those detours. It's not, it is still related, it is still within my scope. And the reason being is that as most know, I'm the guy that broke the story of veterans being offered medical assistance in dying by Veterans Affairs, which, just to make sure that this is clear, it was policy. I proved it was policy, but of course the government's pretending it wasn't policy, though all the insiders know bloody well it was. Um, and also want to talk about how MAID was, everybody who had concerns about it was maligned. Anybody who said, oh, it's a slippery slope, they were mocked and laughed at and called names, but it was a slippery slope. And at the bottom of that slippery slope is people like Kayla, who I have on the show right now. And that slippery slope turned into an avalanche that landed on her. So we're going to be talking about it today. We're going to be learning about Kayla's story. And if you are one of the many people out there where this is new to you, this is going to be a tough one for you because you're going to be hearing information that you were told is wrong, that you were told was a conspiracy theory, but it's completely true. And we're going to be exploring that a little bit. So please keep an open mind. And if you have a nasty spirit inside you, please keep it to yourself and don't put anything nasty in the comments. Just be kind. Kayla, thanks for joining me today, my friend.
Thanks for having me.
You've made your rounds.
Yeah.
Like, oh my gosh, you've been on some of the biggest shows in the world. And what has the response been since you've come out of the closet, so to speak, to tell your story?
Mostly positive. I'd say 95% of the comments that I get are well intended and and positive, but there's definitely been some backlash and some people that refuse to believe what I'm saying is true, regardless of lawyers or people having documents or documents being shared or lawsuits. They just refuse to accept that what I have to tell them is true. And it's a warning story for a lot of people in any sort of situation. And it is also, I had to get out of a lot of trauma and figure out a lot of my own stuff as well. So it does really fit in to your scope, I think, on that part. But in general, the response has been it was really great at first, and then as the story sort of died down and we get into other things, like in Ontario, we're hearing stories about our police officers. So that all it kind of switches the narrative, and then I feel like I'm sort of forgotten again, because if you're not staying relevant, then you're forgotten at the bottom of that avalanche, and no one's coming to help you.
Have you been on Kelsey Sharon's show?
Yeah, I've been on there too. Yeah.
Okay, more than once or just once?
Yeah, one, I believe it was just once. Yeah. Yeah, her and I definitely have a lot of the same um beliefs and issues when it comes to MAID, that's for sure.
Right. So let's start at the beginning when you weren't in a wheelchair and everything was healthy. What happened and what was the timeline?
Um, yeah, in 2022, I was a healthy 35-year-old mom to a 7-year-old son, and I worked at his school actually as a like a child and youth um, helper for people, like a lot of kids with disabilities and things like that.
Like an
And
EA, an
like,
educational
yeah,
assistant?
like a teacher's assistant, exactly. And a lot of, dealt with a lot of behaviors and things. And I loved my job so much. I loved the kids. I loved where I lived. I had a 3-story townhouse. I was 500 meters from school, so my commute was not bad at all, even in the winter. And it was such a small town that all the kids knew where I lived, and it was just a nice feeling, and I miss it all the time. So I was very healthy. Like, there's a lot of pictures of me, and I was hiking and camping, and playing hockey with my son and teaching him and things like that. And I was a very hands-on mom. I wanted to get in there and wrestle with them and play hockey and just that kind of thing. That was before. And then in February,
And sorry,
yeah,
for the audience, we're for this to not get pulled from YouTube, which has happened to me. We'll probably use code words, I think, and
yeah,
people will have to figure it out because that's Canada and that's YouTube. That you can't even say
you
the
can't
truth
tell it.
with
No,
it without putting it in code, without getting punished for it.
no. So in 2022, there was a lot of scary stuff going on in the world, and I had a father who was passing away in long-term care, and I wanted to see him, and there were some restrictions on being able to see your loved ones and being able to go to school and do your job and things like that. And so I had to get some, um, you know, uh, I think we know what I'm talking about,
The mandatory procedure.
the mandatory procedures. And I ended up waking up paralyzed from the neck down after one of mine. And
So, like, how quick did that hit you?
because I have a $45 million lawsuit against Moderna, I'm not able to disclose exact timelines.
Okay,
But it was quickly enough to know what was going on.
I
So,
want to just for the benefit of the audience. I was a respite worker for about 3 years, looking after two men who were developmentally challenged who just needed help. And we lived together full time.
okay,
We were roommates. Now, these men don't get a chance to say they, don't- what goes into their body, what medications that they're on. The system decides and tells them what they get. And one, Leonard, just an absolute angel on earth, had the mandatory non-negotiable procedure done to him. Of course, he didn't have the ability to have informed consent. He didn't have the intellectual
right,
capacity
right,
to offer informed consent. So he did what he was forced to do. 6 days later, he had a massive stroke. Suffered for a year without the ability to even hold up his head or get out of bed or be in a wheelchair. Couldn't even do that. Then they gave him the second round of the mandatory treatment that nobody had a choice in, and it killed him. So after suffering for a year, he was put out of his misery with a second massive stroke, and he was done. And it was confirmed that it was in fact, like confirmed medically, that it was in fact um, the mandatory procedure that he was forced to take that killed him. And my nephew died this summer. He was only 33, and he died as a direct result of the mandatory procedure from years ago. It finally caught up to him.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Thank you.
That's,
But I just wanted to throw that in for a little extra weight with the audience, and for the type that'd be rolling their eyes and pretending that it's not true.
yeah, I I went in, and the first thing that the doctor said is it's psychiatric, and they called for a psych consult, which is a very common story that you'll get with this. It's very common to have injured people that say, "Hey, I just took this. Could it be that?" A lot of them will say, "No, it's psychiatric." So I was waiting for my psych consult, and then all of a sudden I went into severe pain, and I realized that they were giving me morphine. And that's when I started to go, uh-oh. So I had my boyfriend at the time, I had him put my finger on the record button and start recording everything. And I did get the neurologist saying that it was caused by that, and I also have it in all my medical records. So, as of now, I am a quadriplegic, and that means that I am paralyzed fully or partially in all four limbs. So I cannot move my legs. I cannot move from the chest down at all. I have no ability to control my bladder. So I have a tube that's been inserted into my stomach that actually goes down and collects that. And I also have no ability to do my own bowels, so somebody has to come and get that out. So that means that my life is a living nightmare now. I also don't have triceps, which are needed to lift a lot of things, and I can't feel a lot of parts in my hands. So this has um, destroyed my life. I mean, it took away not only my job that I loved, not only my home, but also I had to move somewhere that was wheelchair accessible. And so that meant I had to be moved away from my 7-year-old son. And his dad had to keep him because I couldn't get him on the bus and get him to school or do things like that. So he's 11 now, but and I do see him quite a bit, but and I talk to him every day. But that I don't think that unless you're a parent, you can really understand. Imagine today, like you're injured and your kid has to go live somewhere else. Um, Even if it's just with the other parent, it's not. I mean, his dad and I get along really well, but the part that hurts is all my parenting that I had basically got taken from me just because of this. And I thought that was going to be the worst part of it. And then, it just kept getting worse and worse. I had medical workers, PSWs, personal support workers, that were supposed to show up and get me out of bed. And instead of doing that, they would show up and they would go in the driveway and park their car in the driveway so that their bosses knew they were in the driveway, and they would sit in their car and not come in the house. I have Ring doorbell cameras, and I would call the agencies and say, like, I have a Ring doorbell camera. I can assure you that nobody came in the house. I've got a cat walking across the screen here. Sorry, let me get that big guy
That's
up.
all right.
Oh
That's
my
okay,
goodness.
Kayla.
Come on, buddy. But yeah, it's you want to be on TV? There you go. There you go. All right. So yeah,
That's awesome.
he moved the camera too. He yeah, so I mean I think the biggest the biggest problems were, not having people that were supposed to get me out of bed. Like I can't just stay in bed, and most people think, oh, it'd be great to stay in bed. Well, it's not great to stay in
I
bed
don't think anybody thinks that, Kayla.
when you can't roll over. It would be
Yeah.
like let me duct tape you fully to your bed and then you can't move over. It's going to hurt. And I can feel everything. I can feel my legs. I can feel that they want to move. I can feel how stiff they get. But unfortunately, that is not something that I can get rid of. It's just there all the time. Um, and also you end up getting pressure sores, and then that can kill you if you're. And I mean, I'm type 1 diabetic on top of that, which was part of why I felt so coerced to do it because of media. Um, but you know, the repercussions have been um, at sometimes deadly. And they've, like you said, they've really pushed me over a cliff, down the cliff, and now there's like an avalanche on top of me. Instead of getting help, I went to the hospital saying, you know, these people aren't showing up. I don't have anyone coming. I need help. And I was offered medical assistance in dying. Not that I
Who offered
asked.
that? Who
A
offered that to you? Tell me about how that
Yeah,
happened, how that conversation
the
happened.
doctor, my cat just got hair all over my microphone.
It's all right.
The cat just, sorry, the doctor came in and, just said, um, there's nothing that we can do for your disease or your disorder, but let me talk to the social worker. So he talked to the social worker, and then the social worker came in, and that's when she brought up, you know, have you considered medical assistance in dying? And at that point in time, I did consider it. I took all the information. She said you have to email this person. She gave me her email, and I did email that person. So you can see a record of me being in the hospital and then me leaving the hospital with this person's email. And then you can see a record of me emailing the person and all the things I said in the emails. And she was talking about how the process would start and I would have only 90 days to change my mind or something. And I'm thinking 90 days is not enough to say goodbye to my son. And that's when I realized, like, this is bad. This is real and this is so wrong. Like, what are they trying to do? Are they trying to get rid of me? And I started to really think about that. Was it because I was speaking out, or was it because I was costing the system so much money? Or was it because they didn't want to pay for my medical care going through being disabled? Or was it because I'm considered a non contributing member of society now to them? Or was it because all these things started listing in my head and I started to realize that, wait a minute, they're not just doing this to me, they're doing it to veterans who, you know, literally fought for the country. And then you're telling them that they can't have a wheelchair ramp because and they should take MAID. Like, that's absolutely ridiculous. It
Yeah,
doesn't
that
make
was
any
Christine
sense.
Gauthier,
Yes, it
and
was. And
I
she's
broke
a
that.
Paralympic athlete, as you know.
Yeah,
That's
I
ridiculous.
had her on the show. Christine.
Absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah. Christine now has her elevator,
Good.
and that was the challenge, and it wasn't
And
done.
she needed it.
Oh yeah, it
I mean,
was
I
required.
saw the video and she needed it. And, you know, I don't understand. You know, it shouldn't be up to people that are already paying taxes to then have to listen to people like me and donate to us because the government's not taking care of us. So I was told that well, we are all told as Canadians that if something were to go wrong with these, you know, mandatory things that we were supposed to take, then there was something called the Vaccine Injury Support Program. It's called VISP, and people in Canada are supposed to be able to go to them, and they are supposed to pay for rare side effects from it. and I got all my paperwork in, and I'm not understanding what's going on, and I'm going through worker after worker after worker, and nothing's happening. And finally, I ended up talking to Global News, and they had information too. So then I was one of the people that were breaking the story of the fact that there were insider information and things that the that VISP workers were doing things like they were at work and they would have like drinking Fridays, and there was a ping pong table, there were slushy machines. So
Yeah,
there
the
were
insiders that were actually there said that there was no work actually getting done.
there
They were
was
probably
no work
working at
getting.
maybe 5% capacity at most.
Yeah, and that they were a lot of them were high school students. And these are people that are supposed to be dealing with my claim so that I can have some sort of ability to support myself. Because you can't just work. I can't just go back to work. I can't even get down my driveway. It's snowing in Canada.
It's
Like
another
there's no
example,
wheelchair
Kayla,
accessibility.
of just like the imaginary investigations. When Minister McCauley of
Mhm.
Veterans Affairs said, "Oh, we're doing an investigation about this, about MAID being offered to veterans," there
Yeah.
was no investigation, and I know there wasn't an investigation because I went to the RCMP and opened one myself.
Yeah.
And guess who ended up getting interrogated? Me.
Yeah. I don't doubt it.
The guy bringing the complaint and bringing the receipts and showing the evidence. I was the one that ended up getting interrogated instead of the people that were offering it, and yet there's people still saying, "Oh, it's not true," or "It was super rare,"
Yes.
or one of the comments I see all the time: "Nobody has ever offered MAID. You
Yeah. I
have to
see that
ask. You have to
all
request
the
for
time.
it." Okay,
No,
but
it's not just me. There's so many
so many.
people. And we were talking, even you and I were talking about it, the fact that there is a conservative who's brought forth that
Garnet genus.
yeah, that there's a problem with this. Um a big problem with this. And it's not just me. I'm not alone with that. But
No,
now I've got, this program that was supposed to help me that's being run by high school students that are, doing drinking Fridays and bringing their dog to work and watching Netflix and playing ping pong and enjoying their slushy machine. That was all written in the Global News documents. Um, and then I'm just waiting for the 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 health minister, or what is it, the Public Health Agency of Canada, to take over the program, which means it's just going to start from scratch. And you really think that they're going to make it better? I mean, I was one of the people on there. I can I would love for you to find a Canadian who's still alive that hasn't been given any sort of financial assistance that is as injured as me after what happened. And I still haven't received anything from the government or any acknowledgement, or even from NPs. There's no acknowledgement. They don't want to hear my story. They hear it. I know they hear it, but they want to pretend that they don't hear it because it's not a subject that any of them want to touch, as you know. I've got
so
multiple things that they
one
don't
of
want to
the
touch.
false things that keeps getting said is that all vaccines have the occasional side effect. Well, death is more than just a side effect. Being a
Yeah.
quadriplegic is more than just a side effect.
Yeah.
Have you, in your travels, been able to figure out just how common injury has been and the degrees of injury?
Oh, absolutely. And I look at not just people who think they have an injury, because that could be a phenomenon that's happening too. I look at people who have uh, like hospital records that document it, and I look at case studies that are examined properly, that can be used in the court of law. And it's scary that this isn't rare. It's not rare.
When that doctor offered you MAID, did it feel like it was pushed, or like what was that moment like when you heard those words from the doctor, and how did you
It
feel
was
about it
from the social worker, but
from the
it
social
was,
worker?
well, at first I was confused because I do know about MAID and I support it. If you have a terminal illness and you're at the end of your life, I supported it. So I was confused because I'm like, does that mean I'm dying, or what does this mean? And basically they were saying, well, if you don't want to live with what we're going to give you, here's the way out. And I'm thinking, you know, I didn't understand at first because I really wanted it. I wanted to take it. I didn't want to live like this. But then when I realized I can't leave my son behind, I started to go in a new direction. And then it was just, that was just the first time. So I went back again, and I was having a really difficult time holding it together emotionally and medically, and I just said I need help. Like I need more help. And again, the same unit, the same social worker, the same whole thing. It was like, again, it was brought up, and then I started to feel like it was being pushed because the same ward, the same people, and three offers in total. It's like, okay, this is a cost saving measure.
Sure
and
is.
and I realized, like, if they were to euthanize me today, how much money do I think that they would save just on me? And it's a lot of money.
Yeah.
But we also send a lot of money to space programs, and we send a lot of money to wars, and we spend a lot of money on getting involved with other countries stuff, and we spend a lot of money giving politicians access to the money to do their parties and their get-togethers and things like that. So I'm not understanding what's going on also, because I know Doug Ford knows my story, the premier of Ontario, and he said that's really sad, the Feds should take care of her. That was it. That's all he said. He blamed it on the Feds. I think he forgot that he is
Healthcare is provincial.
responsible. Exactly. He is responsible for healthcare in Ontario. I wasn't just complaining about, VISP. I wasn't just complaining about MAID. I was complaining about the fact that you are advertising to the world that we have world-class healthcare. Like, you can't find anything better than this Canadian system. And there are people that are either dying in the hallways, or they're being given drugs that they're going to be addicted to. Like, we'll give out opiates like candy,
Yep.
and no big deal. And again, I wonder if that's on purpose too. And then they'll also offer people like me MAID, and it means that they want to save money. And then I really am a history buff, and I start looking, and that saying that history repeats itself. I start becoming terrified that you know there was a eugenics program long time ago that a lot of people forget about, and that's how the Holocaust started. I mean, that from things like that, like things like you know, just killing people that are disabled, or killing
And
people
it's
that,
always the same sales pitch. This is for
yeah,
the greater good. And if you're
exactly.
against it, you're anti-science.
Yeah.
If you're against this, then you're selfish. You only
No,
care
I
about
tell
yourself.
people I'm not anti-science. I am the science. Look at me in this chair. I am the science. This is what happened. This is the science. Look at it. Like, it's nobody wants to be in this chair. Anybody that did this could be in my chair. And even if you didn't, I get a lot of comments saying, oh, you must have been one of those people that thought we were all crazy and were swearing at us and blah, blah, blah. No, I had friends that were super religious that didn't believe in it. They said, God knows when it's my time. I don't believe in this. I'm not going to get it, let it scare me. They didn't wear masks. They didn't take anything. And I'm still friends with them to this day. It didn't bother me. So I don't know why people assume that I'm an anti vaxxer or that I'm this or that. I'm just telling you my experience. I'm not telling you how to think or what to think. I'm just telling you my experience and what I see wrong and how I am slipping in between the cracks. So if I can't take care of myself, the hospital would take me for now, and then I would be sent, thanks to Doug Ford again, anywhere in the province that has an opening long away from my son, because they used to have it so that you weren't going to be taken away from your family. He took that during COVID and made it so that you could go anywhere in the province so that he could move things along and get more people in the hospital and get more money being made and get those beds filled. This was a money making scheme. And you know what, he'll put you anywhere in the province, and then you'll be so unhappy that, you know what, you can choose MAID.
We can't help you, but we can kill you.
Yeah.
That's basically the message.
And we don't believe in the death penalty in Canada unless you are disabled or you're, somehow psychologically wounded, or you are seen to us as being some sort of non-contributing member of society, which is a bunch of baloney
And
because
to get
yeah,
MAID, you have to sign a document that says that you donate your organs. You're not allowed to get MAID
yeah,
without being an organ donor. Like you
yeah.
have to do one if you're going to get the other.
Well, the good thing for me is they can't take my organs very far because I'm type 1 diabetic and they can't use my organs for anyone. But they would use them for science. So, I mean, they wouldn't get any life from me, unfortunately. They don't use type 1 diabetics organs. But
Have you have you seen anything that is hopeful for you, Kayla, as far as recovery?
no, I've never seen anyone recover from this, and I have not from to the extent I have it. And It's been 4 years, and my legs are just It's called atrophy, and
Hmm.
basically the muscles are just wasted away, and so now it's like you're basically trying to. Right now, I had a break above my knee just from I had a massage done, and just the stretch alone gave it broke above my knee because my bones are all of a sudden like that fragile.
Wow.
And my hip, it showed disintegration and bursitis on there. Just it's killing my body. I think you probably know, I've had eye surgery that didn't go so well. I was on camera quite a few times with quite a red eye. um, I've had some really terrible things go wrong after this, and you
Did you
know
try Dr. Peter McCullough's detox
I did.
program?
Yeah. Yep.
And
Yep.
you did the whole thing
Yep.
and no difference.
No.
I'm so sorry.
Yeah. No, he gave that to me for free.
Wow.
Dr. McCullough was very supportive about that. I did try that. Unfortunately, it didn't make a difference. I eat very healthy. But you gotta also remember, when you're disabled, things cost so much more money.
Hmm.
Even a disabled hotel room if you wanted, or a disabled van, or like we we looked at disabled vans, so you could use it as a wheelchair van. And when I got that, if you had bought it brand new, which I didn't, but if you had bought it brand new, it would be a luxury vehicle, even though it's a van with basic items,
Oh
just
yeah, no,
because
it's a
it's
hundred thousand
worth,
dollars at least.
yeah, because it's worth that much money because of all the gear that's in it to raise the ramps and lower the vehicle so you can get in. Going to places just to try and be yourself. I mean, it's really hard. I mean, I remember my son, he was so excited that he got me a wheelchair table. It had a wheelchair on it, and we were at Tim Hortons, and I went to sit at it. and I didn't fit under it. And he goes, "Why don't you fit under the table? It's a wheelchair table." And I said, "Well, honey, it's for manual wheelchairs, not power wheelchairs." And he goes, "That's so stupid, Mom. I know I'm not supposed to say that word, but that's stupid." He said, "They could put a lever on, we could lift the table and it would be fine." I said, "That's $1 million idea that you have right there, buddy. Like, you could use that and go really far in life." But these are little things that people don't think about. The world is not made for me. I can't go in the snow on this wheelchair. I can't go in sand. I have a very difficult time going over grass because, if God forbid there's any divots or anything, gravel is a no go. Like,
Oh
you
yeah.
have to be very careful where you go and what you're doing, and you always have to have safety and backup plans, and it's very difficult, but it's extremely expensive. My injury costs a fortune, and even just to take the vitamins that I need, it costs so much. And to live in a wheelchair accessible home costs more than it would cost if it wasn't wheelchair accessible. And I'm having a really difficult time keeping it keeping it up. And I wonder what happens when I can't afford my house anymore and I become homeless. Or, like, I worry about this stuff every
Of
night.
course.
I know what happens. I end up going to the hospital. They send me off to long-term care once it's open. And that would be God knows where. I would never see my son again, and I would take MAID because there would be no other options. They're making it this way. This is not how things used to be.
The system that injured you will not
Mhm.
take responsibility for that injury or acknowledge
Right.
that they had a part in it, and nor will they help you.
No, exactly.
Has there been any heroes in the story that have stepped up and helped you?
Oh yeah, I mean, I've had people like Chris and Tamara, who use their voices to get my voice out there all the time. I've had people like John from the Canadian Independent who got my story out in the beginning. I've had the opportunity. Viva has been extremely helpful to me. David's a great guy, extremely helpful. Mary Tally Bowden, she's been absolutely fantastic. Dr. Peter McCullough. I've also had the opportunity to do shows like Dr. Drew. Tammy Peterson has been great support. I've been on her show. I've done Alex Jones. He was really supportive as well. Um, there were a couple different people that I've done podcasts with that were on Joe Rogan. Mary's one of them. Um, I've just been able to get my story out. Global News, which is not normally known to pick this sort of up, they did have to research to make sure that I was telling the truth, because the lawyers will come after Global News before they'll come after
Yeah,
most
global's a
people.
little bit more honest than the others. Definitely more
I
honest
didn't.
than
I don't
CTV.
know. I really just don't trust any of them. But you know what? That story, it was more about this, but they had to make sure I was telling the truth. They can't
Of
just
course.
come to my house and um and assume that, okay, she says she's vax injured, and she's in a chair, so okay, she's telling the truth. No, they have to see your medical records. Their lawyers have to look through it. Like, it's a real story. And when you find out that the taxpayer money, there's a have $111 million that have been put into that program, and 16 of it has gone to the injured, and the rest, we don't know what they're doing with it. I've been
Waste
waiting.
and corruption. That's what happened to it.
Oh yeah, and I've been waiting for 4 years, and I haven't even got that they've got all my records yet. And, like, again, I've been featured in that news story. I've been all over the world on different media platforms, yet there's been not one person that has said my name in Parliament. I want to go to Ottawa and I want to talk about all of this.
Who's your
And
member of parliament?
Jacob Mantle,
Which party?
conservative.
Has that person spoken with you?
Yep. But he's like backbench conservative.
Yeah.
And he doesn't really publicly do anything. He tried to write to the health minister, and they basically said that they'd get back to me after the Public Health Agency of Canada took over VISP, but that's not until April 1st. And what a fitting day, because the fools will take over on the right day. But honestly, that's not going to change anything. He needs to come out and talk about his constituent and what's happened there, because there's two stories here that parallel the conservatives and their what they're trying to say. There's the VIS part and there's the MAID part. So you can come right out, and there's two big huge stories that are going on that include my voice, and it's not being heard.
Well, one of the things I'll share with you is that the first veteran who was offered MAID settled for a life changing amount of money.
Yeah.
So that precedent has been set that pushing MAID on somebody is bad. And the government did, in fact, settle. So for all those that think that MAID is not pushed, that you have to ask for it, no, that's not true. And I don't know how many more people I have to bring on the show that had
Yeah.
it pushed on them, like a bad used car salesman. Um, like, would you like fries with that? Is how they bring it up. And
Yeah.
I've had so many people on the show that had MAID pushed in their face, that carrot dangled in front of them, just to tell them, well, you don't matter. You you have no value in the world. So how about we just kill you? It's too much for people to believe, but it's the facts.
And I get it. I wouldn't want to believe it either.
No.
But when you're in that situation and you're like there and they're telling you like there's nothing else we can do, and you know that there's things that will help. You know, like even if they just took me to physiotherapy, that would help. But instead, I'm forced to collect donations to go to my physiotherapy, because it's expensive to go to spinal cord related physiotherapy, you know? And so if I need $255 a week to do my physiotherapy, and that's what helps me and keeps me doing as well as I'm doing, and if I stop doing that, then I notice a dramatic change in my health, then to me, of course, they're all going to reimburse that. VISP is supposed to reimburse all that, but it's not enough to just say they're gonna. I need help now. I mean, I'd love it if they did reimburse me. That'd be wonderful. But in the meantime, I'm dying in front of their eyes. I'm on palliative care, and they're just nobody's helping. And
Has
you
there been
know,
one side of the political aisle that's been more helpful than the other?
the conservatives, the conservative side generally tends to be more helpful with this. The liberals don't want to hear it, don't care. Other than Doug Ford, I mean, I don't know what kind of conservative he is, but I think he wears a red jacket in his sleep or something, because honestly, he's been nothing but a problem for me. His policies, his lack of concern about healthcare. He'll jump onto another topic, and he just seems to glaze over healthcare as if it's not a problem.
So much for the myth of Canadian healthcare.
Well, I want people to know that. Like, don't come to Canada because you think it's world class healthcare. It is terrible healthcare in that way. I'm not saying that I'm as bad off as if I were, stranded in Africa and didn't have food or water. I'm not saying that, but we advertise being, a G7 country that has great healthcare, and we do have the ability to have great health care, but if you're already disabled, you're apparently not worth giving that great health care to. If I walked in there as an able-bodied person, I would be able to get health care eventually if I were to wait it out. But it's
The
been
mandatory medical intervention that caused you to be a quadriplegic. Um, is it something that you took voluntarily, or did you have to take it?
I had to take it.
Would you have not taken it had you the choice?
I was scared, and I was told that being type 1 diabetic put me at extreme risk. So I feel like the right word there would be coercion.
Hmm.
Um, so that's where I sit with that.
I know numerous people that did not have a choice. It was no jab, no job.
Yes.
And,
Yeah.
we're not talking about a job at McDonald's.
Oh,
Commercial
I
airline
know.
pilots, like police officers, career soldiers. One fellow I talked to, 23 years in with a stellar, heroic career, all kinds of tours, and just like the high end super soldier that's with millions and millions of dollars worth of training. There's the door. Dallas Alexander, a JTF2 operator. There's the door. And
We lost
taking
so many.
taking the best and the brightest and giving them the boot because they would not be
Yep.
compliant.
Look at all the nurses and doctors and healthcare staff, personal support workers, and they wonder why we have a shortage now.
There's a huge amount of doctors that did not want to take that medical intervention,
My
and
doctor didn't take it.
there you go. There's another
He
one,
refused
and
to give it.
and and people lost their medical license over it just because they didn't want to participate.
Yeah.
And so
I think because he knew he could go back to his country, he was a little. And see, my neurologist ended up going back to Dubai because that was when Canada came out with some other thing about they were taking a bunch of money from the doctors and the taxes and all that stuff. It was cheaper for them to practice money somewhere else than not in Canada. So he left and went back to Dubai. And I haven't had a neurologist in ever since the day that I was in the hospital in January 22nd, 2022. I've never seen a neurologist again about my case.
and here
They
we are
just
4 years
left.
later.
Yep.
Kayla, how can people help you and support you?
I do have a website. It's www.opkayla.ca. And if you go /donate, there's a page there, or if you just go into it and you can see all my past interviews or most of my past interviews in the news section. You can see where the money goes, what it goes towards. There's a there's it's called Operation Kayla because there were veterans that helped me in the beginning with it, but it's also um, I think it's also important to know that to me, this is not something I just need help with. It's also something that I need to continue to do in order to get other people help as well. And to for people to realize they're not alone with this, or that they're not crazy, or that they're not the only ones, or that this does happen. Maybe they won't say something mean or rude to somebody like me next time, or because I get a lot of comments that are just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah,
And they're not.
from the caring, compassionate people.
Yeah,
Yeah,
apparently.
they're so caring and so compassionate. Let's
Yeah,
pick
I
on
don't.
a quadriplegic.
Yeah, they do. And they say I'm grifting, they say I'm faking. Well, you know what? You come over here and live my life for a day and we'll see what you need after that. But yeah, there's a donation page there. Again, it's www.opkayla.ca. I believe it's on the bottom of my screen there.
opkayla.ca. It
Yep.
is. And
Yeah.
I'll make sure that it's in the show notes as well, Kayla.
Thank you. Yeah. And then people can always just follow me on X as well. It's just at KC Pollock, Pollock. I'm pretty active on there. I post a lot about MAID, and I post a lot about what happened to me, and I post just a lot of healthcare related things. And
What city are you in?
I am right in the GTA near.
Okay. So for the audience, if you are in the GTA and you happen to be a physiotherapist that would like to donate some time, Kayla needs your help. And obviously, it would be in-home care. It would make a lot more sense unless
Yeah,
you happen to live just down the street. But she needs your help. So if you are a physiotherapist that would like to donate some of your time a couple times a week and you're in the GTA, please reach out to Kayla at opkayla.ca on the website, or info at opkayla.ca, and offer that time because she certainly needs it.
yeah, it's been hell, you know, and
Absolutely.
I'm hoping that things can change.
Isn't it something that it requires courage to simply say the truth? To simply say nothing more than the truth
I know.
of your situation. Otherwise, there's going to be a howling mob
Yep.
of people calling you all kinds of names without ever having met you or knowing a thing about you. They're just going to assume.
Yep.
It's Mark Twain that I think coined the phrase that it's a lot easier to fool people than to prove to them that they've been fooled. And I don't know why that is. I guess people just don't like to admit that they've been wrong or that they were fooled, because everybody likes to pretend that they're smarter than that they can't be manipulated. But
Yeah.
people have been lied to, people have been fooled. And
I mean,
what has
I've had to
happened to you?
come to terms with that too. I
Pardon
was
me?
I was fooled. I had to
Sure.
come to terms with that. I have to admit that out loud every time I do a podcast, that I was fooled. I believed that what the government was saying was true. I was fooled. And, you know, anyone in Canada that's listening to this, you could trip over a stick or your shoelaces and end up in my chair and be going through the same hell with healthcare and be offered MAID tomorrow. Like it's a problem. And if you think it doesn't affect you, it will. It'll affect someone you love or you. It will affect you. Eventually, it will affect you in some way.
I've known young, strong, healthy people that have simply slipped on the ice, cracked their head, and died. So
There you
I've been to those funerals. So it can happen to absolutely anybody. If you've ever slipped on the ice, well, it can happen to you. And nobody is immune from being in your position.
go. No,
It's just a matter of how you got there. And the
exactly.
injuries are not rare. The deaths are not rare. The all cause mortalities, if you look at the actual numbers, are over the top. The excess mortalities, the rapid spike in cancer, there's just been so much associated and connected to the mandatory medical intervention that people just didn't have much of a choice. It's either do this or you don't have a job. That's not a choice. That's coercion. If
That's
you have to give up your job, your career, your medical license, um, from not complying, no, that's not a choice, and it's absolutely vile that anybody says that that's a choice.
Oh yeah, it's definitely coercion.
Absolutely. Kayla, stay on the line. Anything that you need to share before we close out?
No, I think that's great. Thank you for having me and giving me another platform. You never know who's listening and who hasn't heard it before, and who can benefit from it. So I appreciate that.
Thank you, Kayla. You're listening to Operation Tango Romeo, the trauma recovery podcast for veterans, first responders, and their families. If you see the importance of this story, of the story of Kayla, please share like a sugar bear, because sharing is caring. Simply share her voice. Share it with others, because a lot of people don't know. They don't know the basic truth, the basic facts, and they don't even realize that people like Kayla exist, and there's millions of Kaylas out there to various degrees, including the ones that didn't survive and that are dead, like 2 people in my family that are dead as a direct result. Like, no question, no speculation required, they're dead as a direct result of the medical intervention that we didn't have a choice in. They're dead. And one was 33, the other one was 57, and they're dead. So please share. Share, and maybe a nice, kind comment of encouragement for Kayla in the comments would be appreciated. Until next time, everybody, thanks for tuning in.